Well, Madam President, fellows, guests, distinguished speaker, I think you'll all agree that we've been treated to a veritable feast of erudition over this weekend from the foremost scholar of the Chalcolithic and Bronze Age archaeology of these islands. And the fact that world experts on specific aspects of these periods have come from far and wide to hear Dr. Needham's lectures is testament to the esteem in which he's held, and by golly, he hasn't disappointed. And while, unlike the guests at a certain other event this weekend, the audience may not have been bedecked in fascinators, they have nevertheless been wrapped in fascination and the intricate story that Dr. Needham has been able to weave. In his first lecture, Stuart alluded to the great challenge presented by creating the Rhind lectures. But it's clear from the breadth and depth of his knowledge that our lecturer has drawn on far more than the 2 years of research that he's dedicated to this task. Stuart's interest in the Copper and Bronze Ages stretches back nearly 40 years now to when he was a fresh-faced youth under the watchful eye of Leslie Alcock. It would be difficult to overstate the contribution made by Dr. Needham to this field of study over the course of these decades. Time and time again, he's taken on the big beasts of Chalcolithic and Bronze Age archaeology and has come up with paradigm-changing insights, whether it be his masterful deconstruction of Stuart Piggott's Wessex culture concept and its replacement with a far more nuanced and convincing model of elite societies on either side of the Channel, or his rethinking of the beaker phenomenon, or his work on metalwork composition, circulation and deposition, or his establishment of a firm chronology of Britain and Ireland from the 25th to the 5th century BC, or indeed his identification of 800 BC as a key point of change when the late Bronze Age inflationary bubble of competitive conspicuous consumption spectacularly failed in a kind of Royal Bank of Scotland way. The humbling roll call of Stuart's achievements goes on. And Stuart's characteristic meticulous attention to detail and his desire to achieve clarity and accuracy have shone through in this series of perfectly pitched and exquisitely illustrated lectures. Let's just remind ourselves briefly of what we've learnt this weekend. Stuart's first lecture set out his field of engagement. The lectures were to be an attempt to understand the funerary practices of the early metal users in these islands. Why did people place certain objects in the graves? What sort of persona in death was being created? What was the significance of regional variability in what people did? How representative is the funerary record of what had been going on in people's lives? In short, he sought to examine the intertwined destiny of people and artefacts, to use your term. And in the succeeding lectures, he's taken us through the complexities of the evidence, complete with a mercifully brief excursion into the world of ancient Greek orthography. You say Athea, Liddell and Scott and Thucydides say Athei, everyone else says ethoses, let's call the whole thing off. Stuart has, along the way, introduced us to a dazzling cavalcade of interesting people from the ancient past, whose names we shall never know, but whose concerns and priorities shine out in the laser beam of Stuart's analyses. These include the nonconformist young Turks, who chose to indicate their standing with a flint dagger rather than with a metal one, and also the larger group of nonconformists down there in Devon and Cornwall, who were not going to have any of that newfangled beaker malarkey, and their neighbours to the west and north, whose methods of dispatching people or animals was with skull-splitting halberds. And likewise, the roughy-tufty axe-hammer men, for whom size was clearly quite important, and who, had the game existed at the time, would doubtless have played rugby. And it was a particular pleasure for me, for several reasons, to see Stuart showcasing the powerful women of the early Bronze Age, from the wearer of the mould cape and amber necklace, eat your heart out, Princess Catherine, to our own dear Queen of the Inch. And at each stage in his analyses, Stuart has asked searching questions and has made connections that had previously eluded other researchers. The question of the faltering supply of Baltic amber, for instance, is one such area where Stuart's reading of the evidence makes perfect sense. There were many times over this weekend when I thought, Gad, I wish I'd thought of that. But don't worry, I will in the near future. And in presenting us with this cornucopia of new insights, Stuart has been an exemplary communicator. Like all good scholars, he's left us with plenty to ponder, and he's also posed several important questions. Dr. Needham has achieved a level of academic excellence to which we should all aspire, And he is also a shining example of a now threatened species, the scholarly museum curator. I'd like to invite you all to join me in thanking Stuart for a thoroughly enlightening and enjoyable series of Rhind lectures. Thank you.